Welcome to Veterans Daily with Jay and Clay. And today we have David Piatek on to talk about how veterans can be competitive when it comes to home buying. David, go ahead and take it away. Welcome to the channel.
Good to see you guys again. David Piatek. If you guys haven't checked out my YouTube channel, VA Housing Education, definitely check it out because we have a lot of tips and trips around using the VA home loan and really positioning yourself with knowledge, which is what we both or all of us do here. So one of the things that I want to talk about today primarily is going to be around how veterans can be more competitive in today's housing market. And the reason why it's relevant is because I teach this stuff across the country, and I still see a lot of veterans get turned away from using or steered away from using their VA home loan, which I think is a shame. And I think a lot of times veterans are the ones that are educating the real estate community around their benefits and how awesome they are. But again, it's just something that we really need to educate the veterans on so they empower themselves in order to get to that next level.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Dave. Glad you made it on the show. Thanks for leading us off, Clay. You're hired. David, here's my thing. And when you think about it from just a natural progression of home buying. Now, look, this is primarily about buying a home. Obviously, if somebody's looking to refinance, cash out, refinance, those types of things, you are still there in their corner. They should absolutely reach out. But with regard to buying a home, I think, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, and then I do have a question. So
Yep.
the person should go get pre-approved way ahead of time before they're up against the wall, one, to take the pressure off, because nobody likes a desperate person, first of all. And can you explain to the viewers the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification and anything kind of in between? I mean, there's even underwriting approval, which nobody really gets to until they're already in the process. So just kind of those upfront kind of options for folks and what that means to the professionals in that world.
Oh, definitely. So a pre-qual and a pre-approval, we get that question all the time. Pre-qual, hey, so you talk to somebody on the phone, we take a look at their credit, they give you verbal information, it's all ran through the system, and then boom, here's a pre-approval, right? It sounds too good to be true because it kind of is. Now you have a pre-qualification. A pre-qualification is going to be just a credit check. A pre-approval is going to be, hey, we request a credit check. We review all your income documents, your asset documents. Like if you're using the VA loan, your certificate of eligibility is going to be requested. And all of that should be scrubbed through by the processor and the loan officer. So when they give you a pre-approval, you should be pretty much set as far as the loan goes itself. But things do change, right? Like if your financial picture changes throughout the transaction, don't buy a car when you're pre-approved. Please stop doing that, people. We've seen it more than we should because that can easily disqualify you because like a $700 car payment, just FYI, is roughly about $100,000 in purchasing power, which people don't realize. So when you want to be competitive, you really need to focus on getting a pre-approval. So then when you make an offer, the sellers know that you're one, serious about it, and two, you also don't want to waste your own time because I'll tell you, we get a lot of phone calls from people that may be close to the end of their home buying journey and they get denied because the lender didn't review all their finances. Because people will complain like, why do I have to submit all this stuff? The other lender didn't ask for it. And I'm like, well, there's a reason why they don't ask you, because they don't care if deal falls through because they, spend a ton of money on marketing. People are calling in. It's not their priority.
Right. I have a question for you, David. From my perspective, right, you join the military, everyone knows the VA home loan and the GI Bill. Those are like the two benefits everyone knows. VA compensation, that doesn't come until years later. I think we should change that, right? But everyone knows the VA home loan coming in, and generally the idea around it is it's awesome, it's good. But yet we see video topics like how can veterans be competitive? So what's the implication that the VA home loan is not competitive? Like for those, I'll say myself, I have no idea why the VA home loan is not competitive because it's great to me. It may not be so great to someone else, right?
Right. And I think that's an industry perspective that the program, both from a lending side, is complicated. And there are definitely more things to it. Just like an easy example that's technical that most people won't know is that the VA loan accounts 14 cents per square foot for utility costs that's factored into your residual income for qualification purposes, right? That's just like one small thing where you'll be like, I wouldn't even know that's a real thing, right? So there's some little bit more complexity. There's special underwriters, and that's why people kind of shy away from it, because it's the small nuances that you need to know. The other big part to this, which is a big misconception, is that the VA appraisal process is horrible and all the appraisals come in really short. And I'm like, where do people get this? And I think a lot of times it's who veterans work with when there's no communication. And that's the challenge. Like, I like what I do, because when people schedule calls with me, it's 7 days a week. I'm like 7-Eleven, always open, but not always doing business, because you're not making offers during banking hours, right? You're not making offers during banking hours. You're making offers on the evenings and weekends where, so that's another piece is, veterans working with something like call centers in general. I'm not a fan of that. Just because you don't have that personal touch of calling someone on their cell phone or texting them. But that appraisal piece is huge, because the VA does have what's called its minimum property requirements that the VA has set forth. Because remember, they're buying at 100% financing. And also a reason they have these requirements is because when the VA loan was, and I'm doing a video on it soon about the history of the VA loan, so I understand why there's so much confusion around it. But remember, originally the VA home loan was designed as a bonus for World War II veterans. And then at that time, VA did also business loans. So it's a very robust program, but it's evolved over time. But they had a lot of issues because they didn't really have standards back then, right? So I feel like now they've gotten like too tight on things, but still at the same time, veterans, if there's an issue with the home, as long as it's not a safety issue, a lot of times, again, it's not going to be every time, but a lot of times lenders can do what's called an escrow holdback. And I'm not an attorney on this, but I know a lot of disclaimers, so when I'm talking with Jason, but you can technically, in essence, you could put that repair cost aside, like 1.5 times that amount, into a deferred account and then close on the property. So that's made veterans a lot more competitive. And the VA came out with that last year, even though lenders could do it, but not all of them do it. Because if you're too big, you kind of just can't process that. So that's kind of been like the main piece. Or not. Well, another one too is that mind-blowing is that people are like, well, veterans don't have any money because they're buying at 100% financing. That's not true. I mean, it's just a benefit, especially if you have VA disability of 10% or more, you're not paying the VA funding fee. So if you're listening and you haven't filed, you should file.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned, David, and besides the no money piece, back at the beginning of the answer, you talked about how sometimes, and you didn't dive deep into it, but sometimes part of the issue is that the lender themselves, they don't really know how to do the VA loan. So that's the first kind of hurdle or kind of thing that you need to overcome and realize is when you're working with a lender, if they start to try to steer you into something else without a really good reason, that should be a red flag. So for the folks out there, you should absolutely, if that happened to you, reach out to David, have a conversation, because he can let you know what is going on. Not all lenders are well versed in VA. And then what happens is, and this is what I want you to explain, the importance of getting the realtor, buyer's agent, selling agent, both of them, in connection with the lender, you, David, so you can express to them how you have your hands wrapped around this. You've done 100 million of them, and everything is going to go just fine, right? That is a huge piece, connecting the realtor to the lender. Because, Johnny Snuffy over here, who's never done anything with regard to lending before, has no clue how to even articulate any of it. So everybody's could be worried. So that's a great way to do it. So can you shine a little light on that for us?
Oh yeah, 100%. And then that's really a good point. And so I would tell you what my process is, and this is, I think, the process that everyone should do to the lending piece. So when we always make sure that when we are looking at clients' financials, we review everything. So when they get the letter and they make an offer, like, hey, at least we know at that time, like they are, pretty much good to go. Obviously, things can change, right? But with that, it's like when an agent makes an offer on a property, normally lenders don't get involved until they're under contract. But I like to do things a little bit different. I want to be on in the email with the offer so I could reach out to the listing agent right away, walk him through the process, kind of squash any misconceptions, because literally, guys, every single time I'm on the phone, I'll have that. Even if it's like a veteran realtor, they'll be like, they served in the military. They'll be like, oh, well, the VA loan. I'm like, well, you know what? This rule's changed. That's not effective anymore. This is what's going on with it. And I know we did a video not too long about the condo thing, condo waivers. Like that's probably like the biggest mind-blowing misconception, because I'll tell the listing agent, hey, veterans can buy anything with a waiver. They call their lender and they call another lender and another lender and another lender. And they're like, yeah, that's not real. That's not possible. They can't do it. And I'm like sitting over here, like, we've done it plenty of times. Like, so, but again, we fight that fight to make sure that we're always in your corner. But this is why you really need the team to go after it, right? So then communicating with the realtor, because a lot of times, I think we've talked about this, there's experts, but they're not experts of anything, right?
Say it ain't so.
Say it ain't so. But that's why, I do a lot of classes for realtors, just to be able to educate them around that process. So when they're coming in, and like, let's say you might find someone you really like to work with. They kind of fit who you are, but they may not know VA loans. Well, I'll coach them through, hey, this is, as a realtor, what you need to know. But then that clutch part to it is that I will reach out to the listing agent to walk them through that process. So they're not they're not worried about like, oh, I haven't done VA loans. That's fine. If you like them, let's make it work through that.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out just my own situation real quick. Prior, I bought a house with a VA loan, and I bought it on 15 acres, very rural, with an easement. I had to drive through somebody else's property to get onto my property, and then somebody else had to drive through my property to get to their property, and it went through. It was super easy, but everybody was freaked out. I don't know if a VA loan's going to work and all of these things, and I bought it 100%. One of the things, too, that had changed not too long ago, 3-4 years ago, I can't remember exactly, is the loan limits. And if somebody has not been in this world, they may still be thinking that there's maximum, caps on the loan amounts that people can get at 100%. So can you shine a little light on that before we let you go, David?
Yeah, so there's two sets of rules. If you don't have an outstanding VA loan at the time of buying a new one, there's technically no limit. I think, you can go 5 million, no money down. Right? It doesn't make a difference. The only time it goes back to the whole video on that on my channel is if you have an old VA loan, you're keeping it, and then you want to use the VA loan again, then there's going to be a max entitlement amount. But again, that's like I need a PowerPoint, a laser pen. We need a whole thing to make this happen. All right. But you can check out one of the videos I did. But yeah, that's a good question. Because people will still ask me like, oh, there's a limit on how much I can get. And I'm like, where's this coming from? But it is still in existence today. And there's also, just FYI, because I just did an event with with a VA hospital not too long ago. There's no limit. This is especially for older veterans. There is no time limit on your VA benefits, okay? There used to be one. That's why people still believe it. There's no time limit, and people are like, I'm too old. I'm like, no, you could be 95. I met a 103-year-old World War II veteran on Saturday. He can get a 30-year mortgage. So there's no issues with that, okay? So just remember that. No time limit, all that good stuff.
So one last thing I want to throw out, and I know we only got you for a little bit of time here, and I know that I know Clay is the timekeeper on this, but it just popped in my mind here. Is another way to be competitive and still utilize a VA loan is if you did have money to put down, VA loans don't just automatically, you have to do 100%. If you have
No.
10%, 12%, 15%, 20% down, it's still an option. Give us a quick overview on that before Clay gets the little hook.
Yeah.
I know he's gonna be like, click, done. Okay, so a couple
No.
things. VA funding fee, right? And my own personal situation, right? I'm just using myself. Like when I made an offer, I'm putting money down. Then I changed my mind and I didn't put any money down. There's nothing that happens with that. Okay, you have to check I'm not an attorney, but again, check with your local state requirements. But what you put down is up to you on the VA loan itself. I think where veterans could be a bit more competitive is on higher earnest money deposits. Right. That's my personal opinion on that. So that's a deposit you put down on a property. And guess what? If you do 100% financing, you just get that money credited back to you at closing. It'll cover your closing costs. And guess what? If all your closing costs are paid for by the seller, great. You just get a check back for all that money, just like what I did with mine. So just that is a big factor. But if you don't have VA disability compensation, you also pay less money in VA funding fee. The higher your down payment goes.
Nice.
On that note, David, you had mentioned people reaching out to you and asking you questions. What is the best way veterans can meet with you over the phone, on Zoom, whatever it is that you use?
The best thing to do is I have a link down below that takes you to Calendly, and then you'll be able to schedule your appointment with me. And it's open really 7 days a week unless I'm teaching or but I leave it pretty open. And the people that have scheduled appointments have kept their appointments for the most part. So I appreciate everybody's commitment to time. Just like Clay is the timekeeper, I am also based on time and a calendar. So, but yeah, definitely reach out. We have time. So happy to help.
All right. And if we don't help each other, something is wrong. Right.
That's why you're the Civ Div.
That was good.